So I'm a white woman. There she is. She says recording in progress. I'm a white woman. I'm sitting in my office with some plants. I've got round glasses on and a cream jumper and brown hair. As I said, my name's Anna. I'm the CEO at London Arts and Health. I'm really, really excited about today. We are running 3 events this April looking at the intersection of creative health, climate, nature, and kind of well-being. So we've got Alice today, Kezia and Chantelle, who are going to be really exploring this topic, sharing their work, their practice, their ideas. They're all absolute experts in the field. We have a lovely kind of mindful activity for you, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions at the end. I'll share links in the chat, so if you are interested in any of the panelists' work, you'll be able to kind of find out more about them online. If you can keep yourselves on mute just while our panel are discussing and talking, that would be great. And again, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat and I will deal with them as we go on. So I hope you enjoy today's session. I'm going to hand over to Alice. So Alice is our host for today. Alice is doing her Masters at Royal Central School Speech and Drama, and she also has an organisation called Action Movement Peace, which really looks at the intersection of kind of community drama and sort of working in nature, working in green space, and how all these things link together. So Alice is your host for today. I'm going to hand over to her, and I hope you enjoy the next hour, everybody. So welcome to our panel today on climate, nature and creative health. Thanks, Alice.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. This is very, very exciting indeed. And I am honoured to be supported by London Arts and Health and to be joined by Chantelle and Kezia today, who I think are just astounding people. So yeah, just a little bit of information. I basically really, really believe in the power of storytelling and theatre as a transformational power and the power of positivity in a tool to imagine the future that we want to create together. And yeah, nurturing a future full of spirit and connection to nature. So yeah, I will move on swiftly to Kezia and Chantelle, who can introduce themselves. Also, I'm going to audio describe myself. I'm a white woman with short brown hair down to my shoulders, and I'm wearing a white top with a gold necklace in my bedroom. Chantelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Really excited to be here. Can everyone hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, fabulous. Yes, I'm Chantelle Lindsay. I'm 30 years old. I don't know why I was going to like giving my age. I feel like it is like on like a dating show. But yeah, do you want me to do the full introduction now, Alice?
Go for it.
Go for it. Okay. So I'll do describe myself. So I'm a black woman I've got glasses on at the moment. I've got round gold hoop earrings, and I've got hair that's just kind of down to my waist, and it's like ginger and curly, and I'm wearing it's actually a grey jumpsuit, but you can just see only the top, so it's just a grey top at the moment. And yeah, so I work at the moment with London Wildlife Trust, and I have worked with them since 2019. I started there as a trainee through their Keeping It Wild traineeship and their program, which is still going on at the moment. It's just kind of got more of like a second wind to it. And it was my first job in the wildlife conservation sector, having dreamt about getting into wildlife conservation for a very, very long time. It's all I've kind of really ever wanted to do, with the addition of some other things thrown in there. But it's always just been my kind of, I call it like my sole purpose. It just feels like it's in my heart space to work with wildlife. And so this has been my first workplace that I've worked with in this journey. And I started, like I said, in a traineeship, which lasted about 3 months. It's evolved now, so it's now 4 months long. I was the second ever cohort and the first trainee to then get a position with the London Wildlife Trust straight after my traineeship, which was a real blessing. And I was at the time shadowing the Great North Wood project, which if we've got any South Londoners in here, you might know about it, or any Londoners, or in general, you might just know about it, which would be amazing. And it's a project that is based in South London, like I said, and covers a huge area from I'd say in the north, the most northern point is Brockley, down to Selhurst in Croydon, Crystal Palace and Sydenham each end. And basically I helped to look after the ancient woodland there. It's all fragmented now, as a lot of things are. And so I used to work with volunteers and lead volunteers to, Cressy is one of Cressy's, or maybe her favourite woodland is Sydenham Hill Wood, which is a London Wildlife Trust nature reserve and also part of the Great North Wood. So if you've ever been there, it's all part of the Great North Wood. It covers 5 boroughs: Southwark, Lewisham, Croydon, Bromley, and I always forget the other one. There's another one. Croydon, did I say Croydon? But yeah, so that was the role that I used to work on from 2019 up until last year. And the role that I now work on part-time with London Wildlife Trust, it's a project called Nature in Mind, which I'm sure we'll get into later on more so. But it's a 3-day project, 3 days a week project, and for 2 years, hopefully, if we get the extra funding for the year coming. And it's working with the NHS, specifically East London Foundation Trust, NHS, and works with the Child Adolescent Mental Health Services. So basically, we are one of the partners delivering a kind of intervention for these young people who are on massive waiting lists. And we do that by delivering at Walthamstow Wetlands, which is a nature reserve in Walthamstow. And thanks so much, Anna, you're doing a great job there sharing links. So it's in Walthamstow Wetlands, we deliver there. And it's nature-based wellbeing sessions for 5 to 11-year-olds, one group, and then another group is 11 to 17-year-olds. And we do it bi-weekly. And kind of, that's my day job, I'd say. And then the other flip side, just to wrap it up, is I'm also a broadcaster. So I am a presenter. I have a show on CBeebies called Teeny Tiny Creatures with Chantelle and Rory. It's really watchable, even if you don't have any kids or if you're not a kid yourself. It's actually quite watchable. I learned a lot filming that, so I do recommend. And also I've been on Springwatch and other sort of programs like that as well. So I call myself a wildlife conservationist and a presenter, and kind of my aim is to be a source of love and a force for good in this world, really. And that's that in a little bubble for you. I'll hand over to maybe back to Alice or to Kezia.
Yeah, Kezia, do you want to kick it off? Lots of hearts, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Kezia. Thank you.
Sure. A bit hard to kind of come after Chantelle with all that wonderful information and stuff.
Don't be silly. That's it.
So my name is Kezia, also known as City Girl in Nature. Essentially, I don't have a kind of background in, conservation, nature connection prior to 2018. So I went on an amazing expedition to the Peruvian Amazon for 3 weeks with the British Explorer Society, and went to a remote location without a phone with a bunch of strangers. And for me, it was very transformed me and changed the trajectory of my life, I feel. It took about 2 years for me to really kind of process what was that change that happened within me. And took for me to attend a conference called the Adventure Mind Conference, where I saw that the outdoors kind of space and organizations was way bigger than what I even knew. Coming from Deptford in Southeast London, my background's in football, so I was a football coach, etc. So much different to kind of conservation and stuff. And I saw that people were doing this, and I felt, I've had this amazing experience that I now understand to be healing and abundant, being able to connect with our natural world. What am I going to do with this, essentially? So I created City Girl in Nature as a way to give back to my community and share my love and passion for the outdoors. And it started off with an online series. I created some content on YouTube, speaking to different people about the ways they're connecting with nature, all from a beginner's point of view, but also, most importantly for me, from a perspective of trying to reach a younger me. Showing what Jordans I might be wearing, people within my community sharing their music, whether that's drill, grind, and putting it into a documentary styled video series on YouTube. Since then, a lot has happened. That was 2020, 2021. And that includes working with a lot of different organizations, including Natural History Museum, also live presenting with Chris Packham just recently on the 8 out of 10 Bats YouTube series. And one of the also facilitating and hosting Get Birding podcast, which is about, you know, getting outside and birding no matter where you are. Even me in my flat, just outside this window, you know, talking about stuff from that perspective. And for me, last year I facilitated my first camp that actually Chantelle was also a facilitator on, which I'm gonna just share a little video, tiny little 30 seconds video, around bringing 11 to 16-year-olds to the New Forest to kind of connect with nature and share our experiences as practitioners, as just regular folk, I guess, and our story and our journey into how we got into being outdoorsy. We had a mixture of young people. If I get this right. There we go. So just a picture here of us, and here's a little short video. But yeah, that's a bit about me. I have a wonderful, wonderful project coming up as well soon, and that's the Outdoors and Holistic project that I guess we will get into a bit more later on. But thank you.
That was gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you both so much. Yeah, I am in awe of you both, honestly. Yeah, you've really encapsulated so much of what it means to relate to nature in the world that we live in right now, and what we can do just as individuals. It's just so inspirational. First question, really, how do you perceive the relationship between nature and health? Quisia, if you want to go first.
I guess for me, as I kind of touched on before, having that experience in the Amazon really made me see that, you know, spending time outside or just being present, there's something so special. Healing is one of the words I like to use a lot, and healing about it. You know, all of us have our stories and stuff, and of course challenges. And I guess people in nature, that connection is something that is often, there's a disconnect coming, especially being in the city, especially living in the information age. You know, there's a lot happening around us that can be very distracting, I guess. And just reminding ourselves and others that, you know, being outside, connecting with nature, connecting with ourselves, and most importantly, you know, is really important, I guess. So, yeah, I think that's what I would say about your question.
Thanks. Chantelle?
Sure, yeah, just definitely co-sign everything Quisia has just said. I think it has to be holistic. We are part of nature, and I think, like Quisia said, that I think the problems come is when we are disconnected from nature. We don't see ourselves as part of it when we really are. We are animals, just like the animals we see outside our window. And so I think, yeah, connecting with that helps us to deepen our relationship with our own self. And you know, a lot of like the traditional kind of healthcare, you know, as much as it may be trying to be the best, it's kind of missing that kind of holistic approach. You know, even when I'm working with young people and I'm bringing them out into nature, nature isn't going to be the fix-all for all of their problems. You know, some people also have housing issues and issues with this, and it's all about that holistic approach of that connection to nature, but then that connection with that and working on people's kind of health issues as a bigger picture sort of thing, and not just targeting individual things, because you really have to come back to the root of it. Just like, you know, with climate change, you can't just slap a plaster on one of the issues. It's all about trying to tackle each of those individual issues. So I think, yeah, for me, it's just about that kind of, that healing aspect that nature gives. And it's, you know, it's proven by science that nature is good for you. But I think it's just a feeling inside that you get, and it's not always super obvious. And I also think traditionally, people's nature connections have been put into a box, and it's like you have to connect with nature in this one way or this way. So a lot of people's connections, like Chrissy was saying, she's a coach football. A lot of young boys who are out there playing football don't even realize that they're actually, you know, kind of connecting to nature in a way, but just by being out there, being out on that grass, even if it's mowed within an inch of its life, you're still connecting with nature, still outside, you're still outdoors, just you might not be doing tree ID or something like that. So I think, yeah, it's just finding everyone's connection to nature and using that to benefit you. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like that. I like that. It's hard to quantify. It's so important, but it's sort of almost like, yeah, we want to maybe avoid this box ticking. Is it possible? It sort of leads me on to my next question. Is there is a rise in green prescribing, as I'm sure many of our participants will be aware of, which is really exciting in so many ways. Doctors prescribing nature-based activities as a form of treatment. So I suppose in your experience, in your work, you've got a lot of this of taking people out into wild spaces. And I find that's kind of an interesting difference as well, like you said, with the footballers, the difference between wild spaces and just green spaces as well. That's a bit of a tangent though. Such as the camping trips. Have you noticed a development, a difference in the people you've been working with and their well-being at all? Chrissy, if you want to, Chrissy.
Me.
I guess I was gonna say Chantelle should go, but it's all right. Yeah, I guess
whatever, really. We can just jump in.
It's up to you, my love.
I guess for me personally, like even leading on from the last question and hearing some of the things that Chantelle even mentioned, me personally, one of the key things I guess I missed out on my journey is that, you know, I did experience some what people might say extreme trauma growing up, which included my uncle murdering my auntie, my friend dying by knife crime, and being a young carer, and was then homeless by the age of 17, 18. And I, funny enough, was one of those young people that was on the CAMHS waiting list. So I guess I have a personal, deeper connection as well with what it actually kind of meant for me in terms of that healing aspect and how it really was an alternative therapy. Often, you know, excuse me by using this term, but Big Pharma usually is handing out medication as a way to help people cope with what they're, you know, dealing with. And I guess green prescribing and the work that I'm doing on the ground, and even with the camp, for instance, with the young people, I definitely do see a difference. And I think for me, it's one of the things is that I myself have experienced it. So it's kind of relatable and real for the young people, which I guess kind of in a way enhances their experience of being in these wild spaces. Because not only are they in this space and it's something different and out of their comfort zone, but it's something that they can see that I'm doing, that, you know, other people that look like them, talk like them are doing too. And I kind of feel that that in itself brings another layer to the onion around the experience of being out in the outdoors. And I guess understanding that, as Chantelle put as well, that they themselves are nature. And that's something that, you know, we encourage, I guess, that the young people we're working with as well, to kind of look at it, nature and nature connection, not as an abstract thing, but as a way of life and living, which I guess is not always promoted, and also on our doorsteps. I guess that's why I call myself city girl in nature, because, you know, on our doorsteps, there's always little pockets that are untouched. I like that you've said wild as well, because, you know, there's something magical about wild spaces as well when you kind of look at it from like how it thrives naturally, and you're able to see from wild edibles to, you know, the animals that might be there. And I guess it's just so beautiful, I guess, to also share that with other people that, you know, may not notice it, because that's where it kind of starts, I guess, the noticing side of things, and being right there at that in those moments, and, you know, taking it in. That answers the question.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Just to add on to that, I think like from my experience at Kwesia's camp, I remember just like I can't remember how many young people we had. How many was it, Kwesia?
13 actually attended.
13. It seemed like so many more. We became such a family over that. I think it was like 4 or 5 days. But it kind of just started off at the young people. I mean, some of them knew each other, but you definitely see it day by day, just all the different elements that nature is helping to facilitate in terms of the friendships, how close they got towards the end, how close we got to them, their attitudes towards it. Like, you know, when we first got there, we had to like build a tent, and it was like, okay, we've got this tent, we're like, what do we do with it? And it's like all the problem solving. And I think you know, something that helps to boost young people and people's in general's confidence is learning. And it really just, it helps to kind of boost your endorphins and things like that as well. So it was just all of us team building as well. And amongst young people, what I'm noticing is that a lot of younger generation are really struggling with socializing. Not a lot of them know how to make friends, keep friends, talk to people in front of them, that, you know, it's not on their phone. That's what I'm definitely figuring out. So having those, being able to create a space where young people are bonding, not through their phones because they didn't have their phones, and also like seeing them become bored as well was really great because it was like they became bored and they couldn't just pick up their phone. They had to like bring out the board games, you know, listen to music together or like do something together. So it was just that kind of having them become bored, and instead of reach for their phone, they went and, I don't know, looked at trees or like opened a tree book or something, or like came and spoke to us, like the facilitators. So yeah, it's just kind of holding that space. And I'm sorry, I feel like I've gone off the question of the difference in young people. But yeah, definitely I would say I always notice it. You know, you get some people, young people turning up and they're in like their best gear, like they're all their Nike tracksuits and their Jordans and everything. And you're thinking, oh my goodness, like you're not prepared for the day. But it's like, come as you are. Like, you know, come as you are, come in your tracksuit, come in, you know, your Jordans and whatever. And then you can adapt, and then you learn that actually next time I'll wear this and whatever. So for me, it's just allowing, those young people to come as they are, meet them where they are, and then you'll start to see that shift in them. And just being real as well, something that I really admire. This is like, I feel like it's mutual fangirling here, but something I really admire about Kwesia is just how authentic she is with the young people, and how you make them feel like this is their space as well, because I think there is a lot of that in nature. And I work with a lot of young people from the global majority, so a lot of Black, Asian, ethnic minorities. And that, that's also an indicator as well, because they're coming through the mental health system and perhaps they're not getting served as well as they should be for systemic reasons. So yeah, it just makes it even more important to hold that space. And one of the young people that we had at a first session, she wouldn't even come in the door. She was just so anxious. And so we did a bit of like wiggling. I always do a bit of like body wiggling and all that sort of stuff and breathing. And then by the end of the session, she was like, I just feel like a weight has been lifted off my chest. And it's just like, when you hear stuff like that, you're just like, oh my God. And all we did was walk around the reserve, do a bit of like arts and crafts. And it's just it's just amazing to see people's attitude change.
I love that. Body wiggling, shaking out.
The wiggling, it always works. Shake off anxiety.
I'm going to go off piece a bit because this is reminding me how you've both kind of talked before about alternative therapies, and you've touched upon it a bit. I just wanted if you wanted to go into that a bit more. Because like we are in the space of health care that we're talking about this in. I mean, everyone, my background is theatre and arts, so like healthcare is actually something I don't know a lot about. I just know and believe in the power of nature for healing. And I think both of you have had more experience in terms of alternative health, and that might be seen as not so widely accepted yet. And what are your views on that? Do you see it changing?
Do you want me to go, Chris? Yeah. Sure. So I'm actually in therapy now. I have been for the past like 2 or 3 years, and that's kind of like the sort of CBT therapy. It's online, and I'm not a therapist myself, but I've learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot of techniques through being in therapy myself. And I remember when I was coming to take this role, this job, and they offered it to me, and at that point I was in a really low space in myself. And I thought, my mental health is in tatters. How am I going to help these young people? Like, I don't think it's fair on them. So I had like a real deep thought about it, a lot of kind of like meditation on it. And the kind of thing that came to me was like, you're in almost like the perfect position to help these young people because you're going through it yourself, and you're learning techniques. And so I wrote into my contract that I needed 2 months off because I was just finishing the Great Northwood project and I was really burnt out. And I was like, I need 2 months off. And in those 2 months, I was like, okay, if I'm going to take this position and try and help these young people, I need to be walking the walk myself. And so I just spent so much time just like in my garden, really, really blessed to have a garden. And just like literally sometimes I'd be sobbing onto the floor, literally like my tears going into the grass. I've got a little like trampoline that my mum like shoves at me when she sees me getting anxious. She's like, go on the trampoline. So I get the trampoline and I go out in the garden, I just bounce on it for a little bit. And just like all these kind of like techniques or things that we do in our everyday life that you might not necessarily realize are therapeutic or are healing you, or self-care, things that just kind of help you to self-regulate and all that sort of stuff. So for me, it's been a real journey working in this role, because not only am I helping to facilitate that kind of nature healing for other people, it's also doing it for me as well. I've always found that even in being a volunteer manager and managing volunteers, I'll be getting stuck in myself because I know the power that nature has for me as well. And the last thing I'd say, I think my project is basically green prescribing. And so it's kind of like, it's quite a newish, a bit of a buzzword, but it's like a newish concept. And London Wildlife Trust as an organisation isn't a green prescribing organisation. So there were a couple of speed bumps with that, of integrating this kind of like health practice into an organisation that's, like looks after nature reserves and all of that kind of stuff that isn't necessarily very all people centric. So it is amazing to have kind of like this people centered project as well. But yeah, I would just say definitely that there's definitely more than one way to heal, and there's definitely a lot of research now coming out about how beneficial nature is for therapy or as a therapeutic intervention.
Yeah, just to like kind of come up with the back of that in terms of, I feel that, the pandemic really created a shift for a lot of people in many ways, because I guess they even kind of suggested, 1 hour a day is what you're allowed outside for. And that automatically kind of made people start exploring just the stuff locally to them that they never knew existed prior to, having a lockdown situation, which I guess since that point, then also a lot of people then started to try to look into more holistic ways of living, because there was more time to now be thinking about your diet, because all of these things are linked into, as Chantelle was saying, healing ourselves, looking at our diets, looking at our sleep, our mood, we all are on the mental health spectrum and we're constantly moving up and down. And just being aware of that also, I guess, I like how you've, Chantelle said, it's kind of like how I would put it is that having a toolkit. And I guess, nature connection is one of those things that you add into your toolkit. And that's what I kind of learned. Another one that I personally also kind of like to share with young people a lot is actually mindfulness and yoga, which in fact, and hardly say those words, I just kind of like to say stretching and breathing, because that in itself removes some of the barriers or taboos around these types of things that, you know, often, and when we look out there in the Western media, it's just kind of perceived as one particular person, woman, white, middle class, which is not the case. And definitely when you look into those teachings and etc., you do actually see that it's the history of it essentially. And I think it's important, you know, making things connect with people too, for them to see that, you know, these are all stuff that I can have in my personal kit bag, you know, all these different tools, whether that's connecting with nature, whether that's breathing and stretching. And I think also young people through that period in particular found it really isolating, not going to school where most of their time was being spent, of course. And in fact, there also was a big shift around children being homeschooled now, and, you know, taking a different route to not just you know, going outside, not just like with schooling, with older people going outside more and diet and stuff, but younger people, there was a shift of how they're now learning essentially, and the importance of, I guess, finding different ways to learn that they haven't always done, which I think also helps with that shift of changing the way that as a whole population, I guess, we're looking at, you know, alternative therapies or holistic practices. And I think there's a beauty in that.
Yeah, great. I will ask the next question, but it is a big one. So, you know, and then we'll sort of do a very short, speaking of meditation, breathing exercise. So yeah, answer it as you wish. But as you've sort of covered already in a few different ways, but you're both working within the space of championing diverse communities in nature. Why is this important? Kozia.
Do you want me to go?
There you go.
Why is this important? Well, I mean, first of all, I'm a Black woman myself. And so I know what it's like to feel excluded. And in my journey into wildlife conservation, I've felt that already. You know, I've felt being the only Black woman in a room a lot of the time. And I mean, there's a huge shift now, and coming onto like social media, and finding people like Kezia, Lyra, etc., all the amazing people that we work with, Cam, has been incredible. And what that's proven to me is that we are out there. Black nature lovers are out there. Just speaking myself at the moment in terms of ethnic diversity, we are out there. There are loads of us. We are very enthusiastic, very skilled, and so there is no reason that we should be excluded. There's no reason that anyone should be excluded from the nature space. We all have something to bring. We all have something to gain. And if we are talking about, you know, the fact that we are all nature, then there's no sense in excluding anyone. So I think that reason, in terms of climate justice and climate, the crisis, we need everyone on board in whatever capacity. And I remember studying, I studied animal behaviour and wildlife conservation in university. And one of my favourite modules was conservation biology. And it was all about how you don't necessarily have to be a traditional wildlife conservationist to be part of the movement. You can be a lawyer and still be an environmental lawyer. You can be a doctor, and you're doing green prescribing, for instance. So it's like we all have a part to play. It doesn't have to be this, you know, you in your khaki shorts and this like one type of environmentalist. We all need to be a part of it. And yeah, we all just need to come along for the journey. And the stuff that I've seen, you know, people who are less in the spotlight or less included traditionally, the stuff that's coming out from them and the ways in which they are connected with nature, and the ways that they're bringing other people into that sphere is just so innovative and amazing, that's why I do it. And like Chrissy has said as well, is just for that little girl who's a bit like somehow like me, has got to be someone out there who feels a bit weird and a bit of a nature nerd and not sure where she's placed. So yeah, I'm just doing it for her really, and just hoping that, I mean, nature's huge, so there's place for all of us. So yeah, that's why I'd say it's really important.
I guess for me, it starts with that exact thing of using myself as an example, because I feel that if I didn't have my own personal experience, in a way, how do I have the right to tell someone else to do that? That's how I personally feel about, you know, the work that I do and, you know, sharing it with others. And I guess also coming from my background, being aware in I guess a different way to most of my peers growing up, in terms of, you know, like understanding stuff like institutional racism and stuff, because I had my dad is someone that works in the community charity space. So although I grew up with my mom, I did have a balance in terms of understanding both sides of it in a way, which I was fortunate to have. So with that being said, it kind of gave me a bit of overstanding on things widely. And I guess I try to incorporate that in my work a bit, but not so heavy, you know, not like, oh, institutional racism, that's why we have the prison, like the school exclusion to prison pipeline, or overrepresentation in prison, or mental health, etc. I just kind of do it on a ground level, because for me personally, I say I know, I guess I know a bit about politics in a way, but I'm not personally like to be too political. I just like to stay on the ground level in terms of, you know, do the grassroots works, share stories, share experiences. And I think just being that example essentially is why I think it's so important, because then others, younger people, even if they're not Black, you know, they also are a part of this wider conversation of why is it important that, you know, especially the global majority in the Western world reconnect with their roots, because I guess in their home countries, nature is not at all seen as separate. You know, it's not like we'll go to the national park. It's not that at all. It's literally their backyard. They're going to pick some chilies or, you know, some ackee or whatever, and that's then operating with nature, they're coexisting. Whereas here, I guess, with the stories of migration and, you know, the bigger picture of it all, there was a kind of disconnect. And I think it's great that now, anyway, there is people that are representing themselves, their experiences, their community, and kind of changing that narrative and saying, you know, like, we might not be getting a chair to a table that already exists, but we can, you know, create our own table, kind of thing.
Excellent. Thank you so much for speaking so beautifully about that. Yeah, really appreciate it. I'm not the best at multitasking, so I'm trying to message Anna about what's best to do to keep this
Yeah, I'm just really aware of the time. So actually what I'm going to suggest is let's go to the Q&A, because there's quite a few kind of questions and points in the chat already. And then maybe by sort of 25 past, half past, if you have got capacity to stay on for 10 minutes, Alice is going to run a kind of mindfulness activity. So if you're able to just hang on for a little bit longer than 1:30, we invite you to stay with us and do a creative activity. I'm going to go to the first question though. So Ben asks, If I'll re-spotlight Kwezia and Chantelle as well, so you can see them on the screen. And I'm just going to also stop the recording now for the Q&A. So as well, if you want to come off mute and ask the speakers a question verbally, you don't have to put it in the